everyone, my name is Eleanor. I'm a senior in Columbia College, majoring in economics and concentrating in psychology, and I'm originally from Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm thrilled to be showing you my day today, which will end in our annual tree lighting ceremony, so get excited for that. I'm currently on my way to my first class, Ending War and Building Peace. I'm also with my friend Kate, a fellow tour guide.
Hi!
And I'm thrilled to catch up with you all after class.
My class got out a little bit early, so I have some time before my next one, which is Inequality and Poverty over at Barnard in the economics department. One thing I love about Columbia is, especially in the college, I think you can sort of divide your academic time into 3 chunks. The first is your major, the second is the core curriculum, and then the third is to sort of do with as you will. Some people pick up a second major. I've picked up a psychology concentration. I actually didn't declare it until the fall of my senior year, so you have a lot of time if you need to. I had actually taken some psychology classes before, but I think there's a lot of flexibility there. You can also just take fun classes. Even though I picked up the psychology concentration, I've still had room to take classes outside of my economics major or the psychology concentration. That Ending War and Building Peace class is an example. It's in the political science department. No relation whatsoever to what I'm majoring or concentrating in, but just something I thought would be.
A little bit about sort of me and my background and what I'm involved in on campus. I am a tour guide through the Undergraduate Recruitment Committee. That's also how I'm coming to you today to take over the admissions Instagram. I am a trip leader for Urban New York, which is a program that allows students to go see Broadway shows, opera performances, sometimes sporting events. And I actually will share some about some shows I've been able to see recently. I am on The Next Story. But I really love that program. I really care about the performing arts. I grew up as a pre-professional dancer and still have a great passion for dance now. I'm also involved, speaking of dance, with a nonprofit group that brings literacy and dance education to the Morningside Heights area. We operate at the New York Public Library, so I am always there volunteering on Saturdays and generally helping make sure everything runs smoothly as the chapter president of Ballion Books. Okay, as you can probably tell, I really love the performing arts. Feel free to ask me anything as I go to my next class, and I'll see you all in a little bit over an hour.
Hi everyone! Finishing up lunch at Faculty House, which is my personal favorite dining here at Columbia. A little bit about sort of dining and meal plans. I'll put all of this on The Next Story, but essentially you're required to be on the meal plan for your first year here, and then after that it's up to you whether or not you'd like to stay on the meal plan. About 80% of students will. It's very quick, easy, convenient, it's good, so I highly recommend it. So I'll put more information about Columbia dining on The Next Story. But first, here's a little view of Faculty House. This is what it looks like. Here's my friend Megan. I just had lunch with her. And I'll put more details up soon. Hi everyone. I took a quick pit stop in my room before heading back out for the rest of the day, so I wanted to show you all what a typical student room might look like. I live in a building called East Campus. This is almost entirely seniors, although some juniors. I live in a suite, so I have 4 suite mates. There are 3 singles and 1 double. I'm in the double, so I'll show you my home. This is, I would say, a pretty typical size. You can see our wonderful view of Manhattan from here. And a little bit more about Columbia housing in a second. So more on housing here at Columbia as promised. Housing is guaranteed for all 4 years. It's required that you live on campus for your first year. About 95% of students will choose to stay on for all 4 years. I think it's a really nice community because everybody pretty much stays on campus throughout their time here at Columbia. And I will talk a little bit more about some of the buildings that I've lived in during my time here in a second, because there's quite a bit of variety in your first year and beyond for your living style. I'm off to my final class, which is abnormal behavior for my psychology concentration. I'm at the subway station right now, actually, on the way back downtown from Columbia Business School. I had a meeting up there with a former colleague of mine. During my first couple of years at Columbia, I worked with the Ventura Foundation, which is a nonprofit leadership foundation. Actually,
started by a Columbia Business School professor, Hitendra Wadhwa. And I'll talk a little bit more about how I made that connection in a second. Okay, sorry about that. I was running on my way to class. But to conclude what I was saying earlier, I know Professor Wadhwa through the Laidlaw Scholarship. This is an incredible program that I mentioned for two reasons. The first is just the breadth of opportunities that it gives you. It funds 2 summers, the first of more traditional research. I was working with him on expanding his curriculum on leadership education from the graduate MBA level to the undergrad arena, making a leadership course for undergrads. And then the second summer, which is all about applying all of the leadership and research skills you've gained into service abroad, I worked on a public health initiative in Damongo, Ghana. And then the second reason I mentioned this program is just the sheer diversity of research opportunities that it represents. We have over 200 research centers here at Columbia. Of course, I was working at the business school. I had a friend who was working up at the med school on neurodegeneration and fruit flies. Okay, sorry, it cut me off at the end, but I should also mention that one of my fellow Laidlaw scholars was actually just named as a Rhodes Scholar for next year. So just an incredible pipeline, I think, and ability to learn research skills even in your first couple years as an undergrad. With that, I am getting ready for tree lighting with my friend Erin. We just came from a short little library session. I'll post a photo of this library, which is Uris Hall's Business and Economics Library, on the story in a sec.
It's been a busy last couple of hours over here, so I'll fill you all in. First, of course, was the tree lighting ceremony. It's a wonderful tradition. We all counted down, and then the lights all on College Walk were lit up. They'll stay lit up throughout the winter. They come on as soon as the sun sets, which is actually this time of year around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I think it's a beautiful frame to your walk home. If you're touring campus anytime soon, I encourage you to stay at least until sunset to see them come on. I also met some alum at the tree lighting. One of my friends participates in the Odyssey mentoring program, which allows current students to meet alum, usually in their, interested fields or the discipline that they're studying right now in college. So getting to meet him was such a great opportunity and a really fun way to connect with Columbians of all generations. Next, of course, was dinner at John Jay Dining Hall. I would say this is our most traditional dining hall here at Columbia. Big buffet style, all you can eat with lots and lots of dietary options. And tonight was a special night because it was a themed dinner. Our dining hall staff is very creative and does themed dinners every few weeks. Tonight was game night, so they had a Sunday station with a Wheel of Fortune for your toppings and other nice creative options. This is a great question. I personally am not from a rural area, so of course I can't speak directly to that experience. I do know that we have a rural recruitment committee that reaches out specifically to students from rural areas during the application process. I also know that they put on events after students are accepted to help them get to know the school better. So I think there is a strong community there. Although I'll share some addresses that you can reach out to after my takeover ends today. If you have any more specific questions, as with anything, I would encourage you to reach out to one of those. There are so many great options here. I'm having trouble thinking of a single answer, but I love to be outside, so especially when it's warm out, you can find me on the steps of Low Library, or if the lawns are open, lying on a blanket on one of those. Especially in the spring, I think the weather at Columbia is beautiful, and emerging from the New York winter, we all love to take advantage of it. If you tour campus in the spring, you'll see lots and lots of students outside. I would say that professors are very engaged with students here at Columbia. Personally, I found that when I can't make a professor's office hours, he or she's always willing to reschedule and to find another time to meet. I also know students who have stayed connected with their professors years after taking a class. For example, one of my friends is still very close with her literature humanities professor. Literature humanities is a core curriculum class that you'll take during your first year here at Columbia. We're seniors now, and she still meets with her professor about once or twice a semester. And I think that is not an atypical sort of point of connection with a professor at all here. Great question, and I realized I forgot to talk about this more earlier. I love residential life here at Columbia, and I think it's a very welcoming community. Just sort of walk through my years. My first year was online because of the pandemic, so a little bit different there than hopefully it'll be for anyone applying now. But I would have lived in Fernald Hall my first year had I been on campus. It is a hall-style building, almost entirely single rooms, so they're quarter style, and there are a few large bathrooms on each floor. Then my sophomore year, I lived in a building called Carlton Arms. I was in a suite. I lived in a double. And then my junior year, I was in a building called Shapiro Hall, hall style, several large bathrooms on each floor. And now I'm in East Campus, a suite. I share a kitchen, a bathroom, a living area with 4 other girls. I really have too many here to count. So many lovely memories with friends I've made through housing arrangements or classes or student groups, and really so many that I treasure. One that comes to mind that I think is sort of very Columbia specific is, I mentioned the Urban New York Lottery program earlier. You can win this once during your time as a student. You can also do standby, which is how I've seen so many shows. But the night that I won, I just so happened to win on the same night as our class council representative. We were sitting in Times Square on a Wednesday night, having just laughed as hard as we could at a Broadway show, eating dollar-sliced New York City pizza, talking about human rights and economics in Venezuela. And I think it was just a perfect mixture of the arts in New York, the intellectualism of Columbia, and truly one of my favorite memories. Great question, and I think this is something that's really important to know about a school before applying or enrolling. For me, Columbia has been very collaborative. I, especially in the economics major, have gotten a lot of questions about this on my tours. Actually, my 2 first friends at Columbia, I met during my intermediate macroeconomics course. We formed a problem set group chat. We would Zoom for hours at a time, sometimes our first year, to reteach parts of the lecture that were confusing to one of us, to work out problems that any of us had on the problem set, and that sort of generosity of spirit, I think, has only continued during my time here. In economics, I've never found anyone to be competitive, and I've heard that's true of other disciplines as well. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm part of the Undergraduate Recruitment Committee, which means I get to give tours, do Instagram takeovers, and help out with Admitted Students Day programming. I also used to be involved in Orchesis, which is our largest dance group here on campus. It does all sorts of repertoire, from musical theater to hip-hop, to more sort of classical and lyrical dance styles. It's a great organization. I had a lot of fun in it. And I love to support other groups here as well. In terms of how you can join them, there's a big activities fair at the beginning of each semester. It's especially big in the fall. And you can search out clubs from arts to athletics to random interest groups. And I think it's a really great way to see all of the offerings we have here. Great question. I think my favorite thing to do is probably to run. I actually just finished my first marathon, so I've been training for that all fall. We're really lucky here at Columbia to be situated between Morningside and Central Parks to our east, and then Riverside Park to our west. So if you like to run, if you like to walk, it's very, very easy. Sort of jaunt over to one of those, and a great way to get in some nature time between classes. We have some great offerings for our first year students here at Columbia. As I mentioned earlier, you are required to live on campus for your first year. All of the residence halls for first year students are concentrated on the south lawn of campus, so you'll never be more than a few minutes away from your friends, which I think is very nice, especially as you're making new connections in your first year. Our first year residence halls include Carmen Hall, which is doubles and suite styles. There are 2 double bedrooms that each share a conjoined bathroom, and those suites comprise a floor. Then we have John Jay Hall, which is singles hall style with several single-use bathrooms on each floor. Fernald Hall, which I mentioned earlier,
singles hall style, but with several large bathrooms on each floor. And then we have Hartley and Wallach halls as well, which are both more suite style. So I think lots of options no matter what your living preference is. Great question, and to find a full listing, I would encourage you to go to the Columbia College and Columbia Engineering website to find all of our student groups, including the music and orchestra ones. But I would love to give a shout out to my personal favorite orchestra, which is the Pops Orchestra. It is entirely student orchestrated, run, written, and they put on pieces from video games, movies, pop songs. Their performance is actually coming up. I'm going on the 11th and very excited to cheer on my friends in the orchestra. Sort of answered the professor's part in an earlier question, but for the counselor's part, you would be paired before you even set foot on Columbia's campus as a first-year student with an advisor who will stick with you for all 4 years. They'll help you with registration, declaring your major and minor if you choose to complete one, and anything in between. And I found them very accessible. I usually reach out just about once a semester, I think, to my advisor and never have trouble getting an appointment. So obviously, you can tell that I love to go out and see shows. I think that's a great way to immerse yourself in the city. We also have the Passport to Museums program. This gets you into 27 different museums in the city, actually. Everything from the Metropolitan Museum of Art to the Museum of Modern Art. And that's just your Columbia ID, and it'll get you in for free. I should also mention that most Columbia students don't have classes on Fridays. Sometimes you will, some language classes, some labs, some discussion sections for larger lectures, but lots of us don't. It's a great opportunity to engage in an internship, to volunteer, or just to go out and explore. I actually did not study abroad. I just love it here too much. But I can speak a little bit to the Undergraduate Global Engagement Office and their offerings for students. We have over 100 study abroad programs. About 25 to 30% of students will choose to study abroad at some point in their time here. And the Undergraduate Global Engagement Office will help you find the right program for you, depending on your major and your language background and where you're interested in going in the world. Actually, one of my closest friends here actually had such a good time at her study abroad program in Venice this past summer that she now works in the Undergraduate Global Engagement Office, helping students find the right programs for them, answering their questions, holding information sessions. So there are lots of people with firsthand knowledge who could help you in the office. Okay, with that, I am going to sign off for the night. I apologize if I didn't get to your question earlier. If not, or if you think of more after tonight, you can always reach out to ugrad-ask@columbia.edu or askastudent@columbia.edu. I encourage you to follow Columbia Admissions on Instagram if you don't already. You'll see more student takeovers, more highlights from life here on campus. I had a great time showing you all around Columbia today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed our tree lighting ceremony. Have a wonderful night, everyone.